Thank you for having me. This is my first time to present with you and at this beautiful venue. The title of my presentation is Approaching the Sacred, a Pilgrim's Journey Through a Gallery Space. The journey-like quality of exhibitions is not a novel concept. Galleries often incorporate deliberate pathways, thresholds, and transitions that echo pilgrims' routes, such as the iconic spiral of the Guggenheim or the processional quality of long gallery halls. In addition, natural and artificial lighting creates movements of revelation, similar to how light functions in sacred spaces. Strategic pacing and pause points punctuate the visitor's movement, while objects themselves can function as physical barriers, mimicking the architectural and spiritual obstacles encountered on traditional pilgrimage routes. The paper I am presenting today is a case study that conceptualizes and describes the gallery space in Berkeley, California, as we prepare for an exhibition of sacred objects traveling in diaspora to the San Francisco Bay Area. And when I say we have a team of people, and Justin is one of my co-curators. He's in the back, and he'll be presenting later today. Here on the slide, I show the floor plan of the gallery, which measures about 1,000 square feet. The gallery is located in the Flora Lamson Hewlett building that once housed library holdings of the Graduate Theological Union. Today, the visitor to the gallery has to go through the main entrance of the building and traverse the communal space shared by the library, offices, and classrooms. The photographs on the slide show the entrance to the gallery from the hall, the main atrium, and the inside of the gallery. The exhibit, titled Objects on the Move, representing the sacred in Hindu and Eastern Christian home shrines, is scheduled to take place in September 2025. It presents sacred objects that have traveled with immigrant families from the east to the west, the San Francisco Bay Area in particular, and investigates some cases of representing the sacred in a new location. Although the exhibition addresses two traditions, this case study focuses solely on the Eastern Orthodox tradition and showcases ritual objects brought by immigrants from Tsarist Russia. Most of these objects, such as icons, are family heirlooms used in home worship. Others, however, have been repurposed from their original church context for domestic use. Both types of sacred objects are, once again, reimagined in the context of a gallery with a diverse audience in mind. The main question we ask with this exhibition is this: as objects move in and out of different contexts, do they impart their sacrality to those new spaces? Or do they become subordinate to the context and change their function? So we decided to explore two provocative conceptual approaches. First, the idea that sacred objects, distanced from their origin, still hold their sacrality regardless of the context, and it is the context that submits to their sacrality. Alternatively, we aim to destabilize the sacred status by presenting them to the viewer in a slightly unconventional way. This contextual intervention is designed to intentionally slow visitors' movement, creating a contemplative pause before encountering what we described as fixed or uncurated objects of the shrines. In the first part of this presentation, I will introduce the journey-like quality of an exhibition deliberately modeled on historical and contemporary pilgrimage sites, while the second part will delve into specific object examples that illustrate this concept. Now I can finally move my slide. So, the construction of spaces to stimulate specific viewers' experiences is a well-established architectural strategy for a pilgrim site. Drawing from pilgrim sites in ancient Syria, this approach reveals how spatial design can profoundly shape perception and movement. This site is Qal'at Simeon in 5th century complex dedicated to Simeon the Stylite. It exemplifies this principle. Situated on the highest point of the hill, Simeon's pillar was strategically visible from approaching roads within the 5.5 kilometer radius, yet paradoxically hidden from pilgrims within the site itself. The architectural design deliberately orchestrated movement, compelling visitors to slow their pace and transition from mundane to contemplative states. Surrounding structures were carefully arranged to obscure a direct view of the pillar, creating a controlled sequence of concealing and revealing. This spatial choreography served a deeper purpose. Pilgrims were physically and psychologically transformed through their journey. By obscuring the sacred object until the final ascent, the architecture suggested that only a transformed eye could truly witness the holy, turning architectural design into a profound metaphor for spiritual revelation. I want to share my own personal pilgrimage from this past January in Greece, and it focuses on Saint Ephraim of Niamakri, a 14th century saint who died a martyr's death during Ottoman rule. His bones miraculously recovered in 1950 have since become a source of multiple miracles. Like ancient pilgrimage sites, this monastery is meticulously designed to channel movement, allowing a gradual transition from the secular to the sacred. The pilgrim's journey culminates at the saint's relics within the main church, but this destination is reached through a carefully orchestrated series of transformative spaces. At the complex's entry, a small courtyard offers a transitional zone with a gift shop, benches, refreshments. An outer dressing room provides lawn skirts for women and head coverings, marking the first ritual for preparation. A small rotunda serves as the next waypoint, filled with fragrances as saint's oil flows freely. Temperature changes and sensory shifts signal progression towards the sacred. Hundreds of candles surrounding the saint's icon create the atmosphere of veneration. Notably, the casket remains the only stationary element in this choreographed movement, a fixed point around which all other elements rotate. This observation directly inspires our exhibition's conceptual framework. Some objects will remain commanding and fixed, while surrounding elements can be more flexible and interpretive. Now I move on to the second part of the presentation and describe the organization of objects in the Doug Adams Gallery that mirrors the spatial symbolism of the pilgrim's topography. In addition to the gallery space itself, we have access to other sections of the building, such as entryways, hallways, the atrium, bookshelves. We're using entryways and library spaces as preparatory zones to create a secular gateway that would aid in creating psychological distance from the everyday world. Now, let's briefly look at the sampling of our objects. As I described earlier, we have objects that are fixed in their presentation and flexible, and I will briefly explain that. So the fixed objects are represented by objects mostly for shrine, as they are used in a ritual, as I mentioned, the Hindu shrine and Eastern Orthodox icon corner. And the flexible objects are objects deprived of their familiar presentations and objects reimagined as art installation. Let's go to the fixed quickly. So this slide represents a rendering of an icon corner that reimagines sacred space within the gallery context. The concept involves reconstructing a home environment that subtly disrupts traditional gallery expectations. The objects featured in this space include an icon corner serving as a spiritual focal point, a table and two chairs suggesting intimate domesticity, a silk screen with shadow figures creating metaphorical depth, a window mural of the San Francisco skyline, bringing together geographic and spiritual landscapes, So the fundamental premise is radical yet simple. These objects will transform the gallery environment rather than allowing the gallery to define them. This installation represents our sacred culmination, a destination that echoes the Orthodox altar's complex symbolism, simultaneously references the manger, the Last Supper, or Christ's tomb. So now move on to the flexible objects. The objects in the flexible zone, on the other hand, blur the line between the sacred and the artistic. Let's address the first category, the objects deprived of their familiar presentation. They're just simply items made unfamiliar and strange through their natural use, or in some cases, misuse. And I have some example. This unusual icon appears to be wrapped in foil, but it's actually a misassembled metal cover disrupting its familiar form. Another example is this curious image of Christ, which appears to be undressed. In reality, it is a typical underlying image found beneath the metal vestments of an icon. Leaving icons undressed like this creates a sense of discomfort and ambiguity, which would naturally slow down the visitor's journey through the space. In a similar way, we present the Virgin Mary and the Christ child. On top of its inherent ambiguity, this piece also holds the potentiality for non-figurative abstraction. And we can play with this potentiality by positioning the image between two contrasting pieces. On one side, displaying a fully intact metal-clad icon would push the image closer to its original sacred context. On the other side, we could pull it away from sacrality and emphasize its abstract qualities by placing it next to a piece of non-figurative art. And I use this work by Conrad Marcarelli to demonstrate this effect. But it could also as well be a more figurative piece, or, for example, this abstraction by a local Berkeley artist. In this category, we also attribute a series of 3 icons with golden backgrounds, each representing a different stage of completion. The first icon, featuring only the drawing and the golden background, will be placed in the hallway. The second, showing rough color forms, will be positioned in the gallery along the approach to the icon corner. And the third, a fully completed icon, will be part of the icon corner itself. This gradation reflects both the literal process of creating an image, as an artist would do, and a metaphorical progression, constructing a coherent image as the visitor moves through the space. We also include a number of ritual objects that have been reimagined as art installations. This approach is meant to further engage the visitor, transforming them from a passive onlooker into an active participant. I will show you a couple of examples from this category. The first installation is a wall of icons from the library collection, displayed in a French salon style, covering the entire wall from floor to ceiling. This arrangement references 18th and 19th century art exhibition practices, where artworks were densely hung in a non-hierarchical manner. The floor-to-ceiling display suggests a kind of visual iconostasis, yet it also disrupts the traditional hierarchical viewing associated with religious art. This juxtaposition creates an immediate tension between the religious artifacts and artistic display, inviting viewers to oscillate between reverence and aesthetic appreciation. The next installation consists of 2 facing stands positioned at eye level. One stand holds an empty icon cover with a mirror installed behind it, while directly across from it, the wooden insert of Christ's image, ordinarily placed beneath such a cover, is displayed. As visitors enter the gallery, Christ's reflection appears in the mirror, creating the illusion that the image belongs there. However, as they move, the reflection disappears, leaving the mirror void. Visitors are invited to pass between the stands and, if they dare, to glance into the mirror, placing their own image in the space of the sacred. This installation is a meditation on the nature of sacred representation, prompting viewers to physically and metaphorically inhabit the space between absence and presence. The work challenges traditional boundaries between the viewer and the religious object, turning the act of looking into an act of active exploration of how meaning and reverence are constructed. The final installation explores the concept of virtuality through this traveling icon. Traditionally, such icons serve not only as personal devotional objects, but also as a means of preserving and transporting communal ritual while the owner is on the road. A typical 19th century 4-section metal icon designed to unfold into a miniature iconostasis. It is placed on a pedestal with a projector casting an image onto the wall. The icon features key feasts such as the Nativity, presentation to the temple, baptism of Christ, crucifixion, transfiguration, among others, mirroring the structure of an Orthodox iconostasis. A silent, looped video is projected onto the wall, showing the interior of a church with clergy and worshippers moving through the space. This evokes the rotational motion around the stationary altar, or, as seen in the side of the Saint Ephraim, the casket of a saint. By projecting church movements around the fixed icon, the installation also echoes traditional pilgrimage patterns, challenging the notion of sacred space as fixed and singular. Instead, it presents sacred space as dynamic, portable, and continuously transforming. In conclusion, the Doug Adams Gallery in Berkeley offers us a unique opportunity to explore the efficacy of sacred objects. Drawing inspiration from historical pilgrimage sites, the exhibition organizes objects to guide visitors from secular spaces, entryways, library, through a liminal zone where sacred objects are ambiguously displayed, and ultimately to the shrine, the sacred icon corner. By structuring the journey in this way, the exhibit invites all visitors, regardless of their familiarity with the tradition, to reflect on the intersection of the sacred and the artistic. In doing so, it raises a fundamental question: at what point does a sacred object become art? I'd like to thank you for your attention, and I promise my gallery people to do this.